Hello, and a warm welcome to South Asia Chat. I'm your host, Dr Imran Ahmed, a visiting research fellow at the Institute of South Asian Studies here at the National University of Singapore. It has been a roller coaster this past week in Pakistan. First, with the opposition galvanized in its drive to put forth a motion of no confidence, then the dismissal of the motion, followed by the dissolution of the National Assembly. A Supreme Court ruling then saw the reversal of these actions, and the unfolding events culminated in the dramatic end of Imran Khan's tenure as Prime Minister. Here to help us make sense of the commotion, upheaval, and change is our very own director, Associate Professor Iqbal Singh Sevea. Iqbal, welcome and thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to join you, Imran.
So, I wanted to begin by uh, placing things in a little bit of context. Imran Khan assumed power in 2018 with promises to build a new Pakistan, one which would draw on an Islamic welfare system inspired by the pre modern Medinan state under the Prophet Muhammad. Khan spoke of stamping out corruption, opposing political dynasties, helping the poor, and standing up to the West. 4 years on, he was facing mounting opposition, growing disillusionment, and finally a no confidence motion which ultimately led to the end of his prime ministerial term on the weekend. Perhaps we could begin by taking stock of the past 3.5, 4 years of the PTI government and its successes and failures. How did his term as prime minister change Pakistani politics?
Well, as you rightly noted, Imran Khan came to power promising to build a Naya Pakistan or a new Pakistan, one that was, in his words, based on the Medinan model of the social political structure developed by Prophet Muhammad in Medina. And this was his own interpretation of the Medinan model. And at the core of this Naya Pakistan was a idea of construction of an Islamic welfare state that would fight corruption, that would build a health infrastructure which would provide heavily subsidized healthcare for Pakistani citizens. And this, I should add here, is was an expansion of a model that Imran Khan and his party had actually developed in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and it's known as the Sehat Sahulat scheme. But he also promised to create 10 million jobs, create affordable housing, etc. And there was much enthusiasm for Imran Khan's message of building the Naya Pakistan. For some, they looked at his philanthropic work that he had done in building a cancer hospital, the Shaukat Qanun Memorial Cancer Hospital and Research Center, which is named after his mother, and is the largest cancer hospital in Pakistan, and actually takes care of 75% of the cost borne by patients being treated in hospital. Others looked at his charismatic innings as the cricket captain of Pakistan. And there was much promise in this, in his political rhetoric as well. And there was also the potential of fundamental political change, because when Imran Khan's party, the PTI, won the elections in 2018, they effectively broke the hold that the two established political parties, the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz or PMLN, and the PPP or Pakistan's People's Party, has had over national politics. Um, and there's also another aspect to it, if you can indulge me for a few minutes. When Imran Khan's party won in 2018, this was only the second time in the history of Pakistan that an elected government had handed over the reins of power to another elected government. So there was much promise underlying this Imran Khan's victory and his party's victory, the PTI's victory. Now, we come to the gist of your question, which is about how we evaluate what has happened and how did this promise sort of sour in some ways. So let's perhaps break it down into two aspects: the economic aspects and the political aspects. Let's start with the economy. And to kind of understand the challenges that Imran Khan had to face and he's facing, and some of the criticisms that he's received, we have to actually bear the economic context in mind, and maybe look a little bit at the economy that he inherited when he came to power. He essentially inherited an economy that was in the throes of a crippling current account deficit. Estimates say that when he took power, the current account deficit was almost 18 billion US dollars, and Pakistan's foreign reserves were only sufficient to cover less than 2 months of its imports. Pakistan was confronted by a situation where there was very little revenue accruement within Pakistan, and this was primarily because of the low amounts of taxation that the government collected. So one could say that when Imran Khan's government comes to power, he was confronted, or they were confronted, by very few options. And when he came to power, he had promised to tap on the natural and human resources of Pakistan, encourage foreign direct investment, build an export oriented, or rather, expand on the export oriented production and he took some steps in this direction by offering amnesties to investors in various sectors. And the idea was that by giving this amnesty, money that was perhaps not totally legal would come back into the economic circulation, and he was looking to Pakistanis overseas to pump money back into Pakistan as well. He also promised to bolster the agricultural sector. And another important aspect was that when he was standing for elections, he was very critical of the CPEC model. And CPEC here refers to the China Pakistan Economic Corridor. But upon coming to power, he saw this as a means of developing infrastructure and foreign direct investment in Pakistan as well. So he threw his weight behind this project. And he also tried to invest heavily in the construction sector. And in fact, one of his promises was to build affordable housing. And this, in fact, this push by the government to actually support the construction industry itself led to somewhat of a construction boom, and also a boom in certain sectors linked to construction, such as the concrete section, sale of concrete, etc. He also received praise for developing this medical welfare scheme, which I mentioned, the Sehat Sahulat scheme. However, despite many of these nice sounding promises and visions that he laid out, he was constrained by the economic realities, and one of the problems for him was to have to deal with this the current account deficit. And when he was standing for power, he had been very critical of every party before him for, in his words, going to the world with the begging bowl. However, he himself had to take loans to basically to support the functioning of the government. So Imran Khan's government had to take loans from Saudi Arabia, from UAE, from China, and the IMF. And the IMF loans tied his government to specific structural reforms and called for the imposition of austerity measures. Now, herein lies a problem immediately, because his own vision of the Medinan model, which you had alluded to earlier, is basically a welfare state structure, which does not jive very well with the IMF's idea of structural reforms and austerity. Now, another issue linked to his sort of political agenda that played out in the economic sector was that he seemed to be overly focused on the what I would describe as the corruption narrative. Now we know that corruption is an issue. However, in Imran Khan's casting of the problems of Pakistan, the entire economic issue, all the economic issues that Pakistan was confronted with, according to Imran Khan, seem to be linked to the corruption narrative. So essentially, um, in this Naya Pakistan, one would have a crusade against corruption, and once corruption ends, money would flow into the economy, and everything would be hunky dory. And he tied all the economic woes of Pakistan to this narrative. And this is problem because the fundamental issues, the structural issues confronting Pakistan's economy were fundamentally more complex than just the issue of corruption, as he would sell it as well. The tax base, as I mentioned earlier, was limited. And during Imran Khan's tenure, there was no real grappling with this issue. There were nice sounding promises to increase the tax base, etc., but nothing really happened in this way. Enterprises that were hemorrhaging were also allowed to continue. But I think the major issue that has led to disillusionment with his government is the issue of the mishandling of inflation. Inflation is a major problem in Pakistan. By some counts, consumer price index went up to 13% in January. Food inflation is a major issue in Pakistan. Now, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has compounded these issues by leading to a hike in the price of fuel, and this has an impact on electricity prices as well. Imran Khan's government announced the provision of subsidies to overcome this, but then again, you have a problem here as well. You have inflation on one hand, and the government wants to pay out subsidies, but doesn't really have the money to be able to do that as well. So the in terms of the economic side of the economic equation, many of these issues that he had promised to deal with have not been dealt with. The corruption narrative seemed to be the central facet of his rhetoric, and inflation has become a major problem. Now, if we turn to the political dynamics that have taken place since he came to power, as I mentioned earlier, there were hopes of a new dawn. This was the second time, only the second time in Pakistan's history that a elected government was taking over from another elected government. But what we find is, right from day one, we actually see that it wasn't so much of a new dawn as pretty much more of the same. um, to win the elections, for the Imran Khan's party, the PTI, had realized that they need to win over influential people. And so essentially they cast their net wide, incorporated what those who study Pakistan call the electables, or politically powerful traditional elites, feudal leaders, and spiritual authorities who essentially have a social political dominance in specific areas and can ensure political victory in those areas. So, and these electables have traditionally been associated with the PPP and the PMLN, Nawaz Sharif's party, and these were incorporated to the PTI, and this was fundamental in them winning the province of Punjab in Pakistan in the elections as well. But there was also another issue which I suspect we might talk about further, which is that from day one, if you pardon my cricketing, the use of a cricketing metaphor here, from day one there have been accusations of match fixing against Imran Khan, and this is because um, what you find, the military had supported his rise to power, and we can talk about this in greater detail. But Imran Khan himself has spoken very highly about had spoken about very highly about his good relations with the military or the security establishment itself. And what's happened is, over the years, the system of governance in Pakistan has been described as a hybrid regime. Um, and what we find is, we know that the military in Pakistan has always played a very important political role. But during Imran Khan's reign, we find a new sort of a discursive legitimization of this hybrid regime, when Imran Khan would speak very highly about his good relations with the military, about being on the same page with them as well. And just to end the discussion on the political sphere as well, it's important to note that the way in which his government fell, the very stifling of the attempts to stifle the vote of no confidence, etc., by dissolving the parliament, that itself has an impact on the respect for democratic procedures itself.
Thank you so much, Iqbal, for such a balanced and comprehensive overview. I think you really uh, set the groundwork for our discussion here. I wanted to move to my next question, which sort of um, takes a broader look at some of the developments during Imran Khan's term, particularly with the constitutional and legal developments that took place. So, the dissolution of parliament that we saw. Um, has been a troubling and reoccurring feature of Pakistan's political history. But we often associate these extraordinary constitutional moments as the result of authoritarian constitutional architecture, something which the 18th Amendment in 2010 sought to efface from the current 1973 Constitution. How does the most recent dissolution of the National Assembly differ from or draw on these legacies?
Yes, you rightly note that the 18th Amendment was introduced to ensure that the president cannot unilaterally dissolve the parliament. So it was an amendment brought in to constrain the powers of the president to dissolve parliament. Related to this has been the doctrine of necessity, which has been discussed in Pakistan for decades now, which allows sort of extra constitutional steps um, in the name of ensuring stability. And these two have been used variously to justify certain political actions. But this time around, it's been there's a different route that's been adopted to dissolve parliament. This time around, parliament was dissolved by, or I should say, dissolved on the advice of the prime minister, Imran Khan, and it was dissolved by the deputy speaker. And in order to justify the fact that they're dissolving parliament before, or essentially to prevent a no confidence vote from taking place, they evoked Article 5 of the Constitution, which states that loyalty to the state of Pakistan is the duty of every citizen. In doing so, they essentially imply that the opposition members who filed the no confidence motion have conspired with a foreign state to act against Pakistan. Now, this is a serious allegation in itself. However, it also questions, or it throws into question the legitimacy of the parliamentary process itself. If the government accuses the opposition of being part of a seditious activity and going against the constitution, so it's sort of an interesting. It was an interesting attempt to use Article 5 in that way. Um, the but if we look deeper at this entire issue, right, undergirding this constitutional issues that were debated in Parliament is a very, the very, perhaps one could say the lack of concrete ways in which parliamentary procedures have actually developed in Pakistan yet. It's a work in progress. So there was a lot of debate about if a, the deputy speaker, and not the speaker itself, but the deputy speaker itself, had the authority to override a no confidence vote. um, and if what is the procedure about calling which vote goes first, etc. So there was an entire discourse, the debate or discussion about the procedures of parliament itself linked to this. But perhaps more importantly is the a question over the authority of the Supreme Court itself. Now, the Supreme Court ruled that the deputy speaker's actions were unconstitutional and unparliamentarian, and that there should be a no vote of confidence, which took place on Saturday. Now, the Supreme Court's decision has been hailed as having restored democratic norms. I would, however, say that we need to also pay attention to the Supreme Court's role in democratic processes as well. So I think we need to keep an eye on that, because the Chief Justice Umar Bandial had himself taken suo motu notice of developments in Parliament itself, and the Chief Justice of Pakistan has the authority to do this unilaterally. And this is not the first time that the Supreme Court has been involved in parliamentary affairs. Before Imran Khan came to power, ex-Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif was dismissed on charges of corruption by the Supreme Court. Even President Musharraf, who had become the president of Pakistan, the Supreme Court has found his actions to be unconstitutional as well. So what I'm trying to allude to is that even if the Supreme Court's actions in this case uh, uh, seem to be in line with reinstalling democratic norms, the very fact that in Pakistan's parliamentary history, we have a process in which the Supreme Court is involved in determining the political future of Pakistan is something that we should perhaps keep an eye on. And if I could just add a little bit, because you started with the mention of the 18th Amendment, the coalition that is in power now in Pakistan, or establishing power in Pakistan now, has said that it is going to usher in electoral reforms before calling for the next election. So let's keep an eye out on how they what sort of reforms they introduce in the process.
Oh, thank you so much. I think you've sort of really put forward the historical context of things as well as some contemporary developments together. You touched on the close relationship between the military and Khan's government. I wanted to sort of uh, provoke more of your thoughts on that. So, Khan and his PTI led government assumed power with the backing of the security establishment in Pakistan, but it appeared, especially in recent months, there to be a growing estrangement. What changed? And did Khan's opponents widen this divide, or do you think they simply capitalized on it?
Well, Khan is Imran Khan is often was often described as the selected candidate. Selected, referring here to him being selected and propped up by the military. And these
Yes.
are not my accusations against him. These are accusations that the opposition in Pakistan would place against him. I mentioned earlier that Imran Khan has himself often spoken or used to speak highly about his relationship with the military as well, and in fact, his regime is often known as the described as a hybrid regime as well. It's also worth noting here that prior to coming to power, or prior to the elections leading up to the elections of 2018, Imran Khan had himself criticized other political parties for cozying up to the military and receiving military patronage from the military itself. But what we do know is that he's had good, strong relations with the military till fairly recently. But we did notice the rifts occurring in 2021, or publicly occurring in 2021, and one of these rifts was a public disagreement over the appointment of the chief of the Inter-Services Intelligence Spy Agency, or the ISI, in 2021. Imran Khan had wanted to retain Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid, while the Chief of Army Staff, General Qamar Bajwa, had actually wanted Nadeem Anjum to succeed and take over the ISI. So this was the first time in which we saw a sort of a public playing out of differences between Imran Khan and the military regime itself. Um, the other major issue that's played out in the past few months, but really came to the fore in the last few weeks, is that Imran Khan has been very vocal about the call for an Azad or independent foreign policy, and a
Yes.
rejection of, in his words, Pakistan's humiliating relations with the United States. And this has further affected his relations with the military. This became very clear when General Bajwa, Chief of Army Staff of Pakistan, um, when he addressed the Islamabad security dialogue last week, just at the point at which Imran Khan was supposed to be facing a no confidence vote in Parliament. And in his speech, General Bajwa mentioned that the United States is an important partner for Pakistan, that and he described the Russian action in Ukraine as a invasion that has killed thousands, made millions refugees, and must end. So now this brought to light a sort of very different perspective on foreign policies as well. And the context, as I mentioned, is earlier because Imran Khan has been accusing the United States of plotting to effect his downfall, and also he was confronted with the no confidence vote, and the subsequent actions in Parliament, etc., reveal how he attempted to play an idea of a foreign conspiracy against him that was spearheaded by the US itself. Um, but these are points at which the rift came into the public. However, I would just like to throw something out there for us to consider looking ahead. That very often we approach the security establishment in Pakistan as a united bloc. There are different views and opinions within the security establishment itself.
Yes,
And I think what we've seen is Imran Khan has brought some of these to the fore, but he also, especially in his last week, perhaps in power, I should say, he he perhaps tried to negotiate between these as well. So keep an eye on this space in that sense. And I'll just like to to, to kind of end my answer here by just saying that the security establishment is also concerned about its own legitimacy and position as well. So while it supported Imran Khan when he came to power, they don't necessarily want to be seen as someone as an establishment that is supporting someone who's losing favor in the country itself. And in this light, there are rumors there've always been chatter about how close chatter about Sabah Sharif being close to certain factions within the security establishment itself. But I would say that in this context now, what we find is rather than the security establishment having orchestrated the political shifts, I think it's better to see them as having allowed these shifts to happen.
I see. Thank you so much, Iqbal. So I wanted to move to my next question, sort of looking more closely at the alliance that looks to be now the ruling alliance. Um, so the political alliance against the PTI comprises of long-term rivals. At the same time, we see that the PTI has found quite a bit of success in recent local government elections, suggesting that as a party, it still maintains the support of much of its political base. Is the anti PTI coalition now in power likely to endure over the coming months, or is it simply an alliance of convenience that might unravel?
Well, well, for one thing for sure is that in the coming months, Pakistan will witness intense political contestation. It's if you look at the rallies, the protests that have been held, the press conferences going on, and if you look at the domain of social media, right, it's already in election mode. And so
Yes,
on one hand, you have Imran Khan, who spent much of the last 2 weeks rallying his support base. And it's important here, as you just mentioned, that the PTI has lost the majority in parliament, but it retains a strong and loyal base. And so he's been playing up his battle against corruption, his battle against political dynasties, and merging this with religious symbolism. And this has created a strong support base among the middle class and younger Pakistanis. He's also presented himself now as the lone figure fighting for the pride and integrity of Pakistan against foreign powers and local conspirators. So you have him rallying his support base in that sense. And you very rightly mentioned that despite the troubles in the center, the the PTI emerged as a substantial winner in local body elections in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, and this just highlights the fact that we have to look at the elections domain in Pakistan in terms of national elections and provincial elections as well. So there's two battles being fought at the same time as well. Um, but even the other parties in the coalition that's against Imran Khan, right? And here you have the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz, you have the Pakistan's People's Party, you have the Jamaat-e Ulama Islam F Fazal, and you have the MQMP. These parties are not ideologically united. In fact, there's very little that binds them apart from their opposition towards Imran Khan and the PTI. While they have some sort of a power sharing agreement at the moment, they themselves are under no delusions that this is a coalition for the long term. They themselves are braced for the upcoming elections. And elections, if parliament is to see its term through, elections would happen in August 2023, or happen by August 2023. But that's almost certainly not the case. And each of these parties are already involved in mobilizing their bases, etc. So I don't see it as a coalition that's going to last till August 2023.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So my final question is sort of looking back on the military, but perhaps thinking about the military's next moves. So the military in Pakistan, you know, many scholars and commentators have basically said that they're the kingmaker of the country. But the security establishment now appears to have quite a complex and difficult relationship with all the major parties. Um, Although there's much scrutiny about what the courts are doing and what the politicians are doing, as Pakistan enters a period of prolonged political uncertainty, if I may say, are there any signs as to who the military is likely to support in the near future?
Mhm. Uh-huh. Now, the military has said that it's remained neutral in this current political wrangling that's occurred, and it has asserted that it will continue to remain neutral. But with the chief of army staff coming up for retirement this year, it remains to be seen how detached they will stay from the formation of the new government. What we know for sure is the military will continue to have a important role in the political future of Pakistan. But as you alluded to in the question itself, they have no easy allies this time round. They don't have a PTI that can be propped up, etc. If we look at the individual parties that are part of the coalition that's managed to overthrow the PTI government, um, the two big parties of the coalition, the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz Sharif's party, Shabazz Sharif's party now, actually the Prime Minister, the to be Shabazz Sharif's party, and the Pakistan People's Party, PPP. Both of these parties have been recipients of support in the past, or have been recipients of support from the military in the past, but both have also have blamed the military for destabilizing their governments as well. And so there's a long history there as well. Now, if you look at another party that's a key player in this coalition as well, the Jamaat Ulama Islam Fazl, or F, they are strong in the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province, but they also have support among certain religious groups as well. They themselves have received support from the military because of their influence across the border in Afghanistan as well. But they themselves have a tense and relationship with the military as well. If we look at the past few months, all of these parties have been critical of the army for supporting Imran Khan. The very fact that they describe Imran Khan as a selected leader as well speaks about their views of the military's role in politics as well. However, in the last few months, each of these parties have also been trying to establish relations with the military as well. There's a lot of speculation about the discussions that have gone on between these parties and the military. So each one of these uh, parties, while criticizing Imran Khan for cozying up to the military, have themselves been involved in some sort of level of negotiations with the military themselves as well. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there's a view that Shahbaz Sharif is close to the military, and the military would support him for the short term. This remains to be seen how the chips would fall, because I suspect there's going to be in the upcoming elections, the numbers will play a role in shaping which way the military looks, because they have no easy allies this time. But all I would say is that history has shown that various leaders have gained the support of the military, but also been dethroned by the military as well. And we don't have to look too far in the past as well. We can see Imran Khan's case, but we can also see Nawaz Sharif's case as well.
Iqbal, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
You're listening to South Asia Chat. If you wish to learn more about our work, please visit us at isas.nus.edu.sg.